Jake Morrison stood in line with the other humans, his heart beating fast in his chest. The waiting room on Crossroads Alpha Station was huge, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some had blue skin, others had scales, and a few glowed softly in the dim light. Jake wiped his sweaty palms on his uniform pants and tried to stay calm. This was it. The moment that would change everything. After years of talking through screens and radio signals, humans were finally meeting aliens face to face. And not just meeting them, living with them, learning from them. The Galactic Coalition had created this program to bring different species together. Each human would be paired with an alien partner for 1 year. Next, called the tall insect-like creature behind the desk. Its voice came through a translation device that hung around its neck. Lisa Green, Jake's friend from the colony ship, stepped forward. She was smiling, her blonde hair tied back neatly. Jake watched as the Threll official checked its computer screen and nodded. Lisa Green, you are matched with Ambassador Torin of Centauri Prime. He specializes in cultural studies and enjoys classical music. A gentle-looking alien with silver skin and kind eyes stepped forward. He bowed to Lisa, and she bowed back, her smile growing wider. They walked off together, already talking about Earth's music history. Jake felt a bit better. See, this wasn't so bad. Everyone was getting normal, friendly aliens. Scientists, diplomats, teachers. People who wanted to learn and share. Next, Kevin Hayes, the ship's pilot, went up. He got matched with a being made of crystal who sang instead of talked. They seemed happy together. Next, Jake's turn. He walked to the desk on shaky legs. The Threll official looked at its screen, then froze. Its large eyes blinked several times. It clicked its mandibles together, which Jake had learned meant the creature was nervous. The official said. Jake Morrison? Yes, that's me. There seems to be... The official tapped the screen with one of its thin arms. Your matches. Kayla Bloodmoon, species Vorathon. The room went quiet. Jake heard whispers starting around him. Someone gasped. The crystal being made a low, worried sound. What's a Vorathon? Jake asked, though something in his stomach told him he didn't want to know. The Threll official's translator seemed to struggle with the words. They are warriors from the moon, Kreshtar. They are very strong and very... It paused. Traditional. Traditional how? They drink blood, someone whispered behind Jake. I heard they eat their enemies. That's just rumors, another voice said. But it didn't sound sure. The official stood up straighter, trying to look professional. The Vorathons are a respected member species of the Coalition. They have served with honor in the border conflicts. Your match, Kayla Bloodmoon, is a clan leader and hunter. She requested a human partner specifically. She requested me. Jake's voice came out higher than he meant it to. Why would she? I cannot say. But the matching is final. All assignments are carefully calculated by our best computers. You and Kayla Bloodmoon are compatible. But everyone else got diplomats and scientists. Can't I? The assignment is final, the Threll repeated more firmly this time. Please wait in Chamber 3, she will arrive shortly. Jake wanted to argue, to run, to demand a different match. But the official was already calling the next person in line. 2 security guards, both large and armored, gestured for Jake to follow them. He didn't have a choice. Chamber 3 was cold and empty except for a metal table and 2 chairs. Jake sat down and put his head in his hands. This couldn't be happening. He was just a xenobiologist. He studied alien plants and small creatures. He wasn't a warrior or a fighter. He got nervous when he had to give presentations, and now he was matched with some kind of alien vampire warrior woman. The door hissed open. Jake looked up and felt his breath catch in his throat. She was tall. Much taller than Jake, easily 7 feet. Her skin was deep crimson, like dark red wine, and covered in pale scars that looked like they came from claws and blades. Her hair was black and wild, falling past her shoulders. She wore armor made of some kind of dark leather and metal plates. But what caught Jake's attention most were her eyes. They glowed amber like fire, and they locked onto him the moment she entered, and her teeth. When she smiled, he could see her fangs. Long, sharp, and very white. You are Jake Morrison, she said. Her voice was deep and rough, with an accent he couldn't place. The human? Yes, Jake managed to say. And you're Kayla? She walked around him slowly, looking him up and down like someone examining meat at a market. Jake stayed very still. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run, but his legs wouldn't move. So small, Kayla said almost to herself. Soft skin, dull teeth. No claws. She leaned down, sniffing near his neck. Jake's heart hammered so hard he thought it might explode. But your blood is strong. I can hear it rushing through you, fast, like a prey animal. I'm not prey, Jake said, trying to sound brave and failing completely. Kayla laughed. It was a sharp barking sound. We will see, little human. We will see. She straightened up and crossed her arms over her chest. I am Kayla Bloodmoon, daughter of Clan Chief Mordak, hunter of the Red Mountains, killer of the great Kresh beast. I have fought in 12 battles and won them all. Jake swallowed hard. I'm Jake Morrison. I have a degree in xenobiology. I like reading and plants, another laugh. Plants. By the blood moon, they have given me a plant tender. But there was something in her eyes that wasn't quite mockery. Curiosity, maybe? The coalition says we must live together for 1 year. Learn from each other. You will come to Kreshtar, to my clan's home. What's Kreshtar like? Jake asked, though he was afraid of the answer. Hot during the sun time, cold during the dark time, full of creatures that want to kill you. Perfect for making warriors strong. Kayla grinned again, showing all her fangs. You will either become strong, Jake Morrison, or you will die. Either way, this will be interesting. She turned and walked toward the door, then looked back over her shoulder. Come, we leave now. Bring only what you need. Everything else is weakness. Jake stood up on wobbly legs. His bag was by the door, packed with his books, his computer, his research notes, and his medical supplies. Everything he thought he would need for a year of peaceful cultural exchange. As he followed the tall, scarred alien warrior woman out of the chamber, Jake realized that nothing about the next year was going to be peaceful. Lisa got a friendly diplomat, Kevin got a musical crystal being, and Jake got Kayla Bloodmoon. He looked up at her broad shoulders, her confident walk, the way other aliens stepped aside when they saw her coming. He thought about her glowing eyes and sharp fangs and the scars that covered her body. This was going to be a very long year. 2 months passed on Kreshtar. Jake's body changed in ways he never thought possible. His soft scientist hands became calloused and strong. The muscles in his arms and legs grew harder from the constant training. He could run the compound's perimeter 3 times without stopping now. He still wasn't as strong as a Vorathan child, but he was stronger than he had ever been on Earth. More importantly, he was learning. Jake spent his mornings training with Kayla, but his afternoons were spent doing what he did best, studying and teaching. He showed the Vorathans how to grow certain plants that could survive in Kreshtar's harsh soil. These plants made medicines that helped heal wounds faster. The clan elders were suspicious at first, but when Jake's remedies worked, they began to listen. He taught them about preserving food so it would last longer during the cold season. He showed them how to purify water from the mountain springs using filters he built from local materials. Slowly, the clan started seeing him as useful instead of just weak. Even Drek stopped mocking him as much, after Jake treated the warrior's infected wound with medicine that the clan healers couldn't fix. Drex gave him a respectful nod. For a Vorathan, that was practically a declaration of friendship. But the biggest change was between Jake and Kayla. They spent every day together, and slowly, they began to understand each other. Kayla taught him the Vorathan language, and he taught her more about Earth. At night, sitting by the fire in their shared quarters, they would talk. Your world has places where no one fights? Kayla asked one evening, sounding amazed. We have wars sometimes, Jake admitted. But most places, most of the time, people live peacefully. They work, raise families, grow old without ever being in a battle. That sounds... Kayla struggled with the word, soft but also nice. I have never known a day without preparing for battle. What's it like? Jake asked. Growing up here? Kayla stared into the fire. Every Vorathan child learns to fight as soon as they can walk. We hunt, we train, we prove ourselves. When I was 10 summers old, I killed my first Kresh beast alone. My father was proud. He said I would be a great warrior. Her voice grew quieter. He died in battle 2 years later, fighting raiders from the northern clans. I'm sorry, Jake said. Kayla looked at him surprised. Why? It was an honorable death. He died protecting the clan. That doesn't mean you don't miss him. For a moment, Kayla's fierce expression softened. No, it does not mean that. She looked away quickly, and Jake understood. Vorathans didn't like showing weakness, even in grief. Everything changed on the night of the blood moon. Jake woke to the sound of drums beating throughout the compound. Kayla was already up, putting on her best armor. The leather had been cleaned and oiled, and the metal plates shone in the firelight. "What's happening?" Jake asked, sitting up. "The blood moon rises tonight. It is a sacred time for my people. Warriors prove their worth, challenges are made, and debts are settled." Kayla's voice was tight. "I have been challenged." "Challenged? By who?" "Rax Steelclaw. He leads a clan from the eastern valleys. He wants to claim this territory and take my position as hunt leader. If he defeats me, he will control both clans." Jake felt his stomach drop. "When do you fight?" "At moonrise. 2 hours from now." Kayla finished strapping on her armor and picked up her weapons. Her hands were steady, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. "Can I help? This is a formal challenge. Ancient rules. No weapons, only natural strength and fangs. No one can interfere or both fighters are dishonored and executed." She looked at him. "You will watch from the arena with the others. That is all you can do." The entire clan gathered in a circular arena carved into the rock. Torches burned around the edges, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The blood moon rose huge and red in the sky, giving everything a crimson glow. Jake stood with the other non-warriors, his heart pounding. Rax Steelclaw entered first. He was even bigger than Kayla, with scars covering his entire body. His fangs were longer than any Jake had seen, filed to sharp points. The crowd from his clan cheered. He beat his chest and roared, showing off his strength. Then Kayla entered. She walked calmly to the center of the arena, her amber eyes fixed on her opponent. She didn't show off or roar. She just stood there, ready. The clan elder, an ancient Vorathon woman with white scars covering her face, raised her hand. "By the old laws, these two will fight. The winner claims the territory, the loser claims death or exile. There will be no mercy, no surrender. Let the blood moon judge who is worthy." She dropped her hand. Rax charged immediately, his massive body moving faster than something that big should move. Kayla dodged to the side and raked her claws across his ribs, drawing first blood. The crowd roared. For 10 minutes they fought. It was brutal and violent, nothing like the training Jake had seen. They bit and clawed, threw each other into the arena walls, and moved so fast Jake could barely follow. Kayla was faster, but Rax was stronger. Each time she landed a hit, he landed one harder. Then Jake saw it. Rax's claws had a strange shine to them when he struck. And every time they cut Kayla, she moved a little slower. Her attacks became less precise. Her dodges were late. Poison. Rax had poisoned his claws. Jake looked around wildly. No one else seemed to notice, or maybe they didn't care. This was supposed to be a fight with no weapons, but poison was natural to some Vorathons. Maybe it was allowed, but it wasn't fair. Kayla was the better fighter, and she was losing because of poison. Rax hit her hard across the face, and Kayla fell. She tried to get up, but her legs wouldn't work properly. The poison was spreading. Rax stood over her, ready to deliver the killing blow. Jake didn't think. He just acted. He jumped over the barrier into the arena and ran toward them, his medical bag in his hands. The crowd gasped. Some shouted in anger. Breaking into a formal challenge was forbidden. "Stop!" Rax roared. "The human interferes. She is dishonored." Jake skidded to his knees beside Kayla. Her eyes were unfocused, her breathing shallow. He recognized the symptoms from his studies. Paralytic venom from a cave serpent native to Kreshitar. He had made an antidote weeks ago just in case, storing it in his medical supplies. His hands shook as he pulled out the injector and pressed it against Kayla's neck. The medicine hissed as it entered her bloodstream. The clan elder walked into the arena, her face grim. Behind her, guards moved forward with weapons ready. Jake was going to be killed for this, but at least Kayla would live. "Wait," Kayla's voice was weak but clear. She pushed herself up on one elbow, then slowly stood. The antidote was working fast. By the old laws, a warrior's mate has the right to aid them in battle. Jake Morrison acted within his rights. "Mate?" The elder looked between them. "You have not declared him as mate. There has been no ceremony." Kayla looked down at Jake, who was still kneeling in the dirt. Something passed across her face, an emotion Jake had never seen there before. Then she reached down and pulled him to his feet. "I declare it now," she said loudly so everyone could hear. "Jake Morrison is my mate. He risked death to save me. That is the greatest proof of bond that exists," the crowd murmured. Rax snarled. "This is a trick. The human is weak." "He is not worthy. Do you wish to continue the challenge?" Kayla interrupted. Her voice was strong now, the poison fully neutralized. "Because I am ready." Rax looked at her, now fully recovered and very angry. He looked at his own tired body, bleeding from dozens of wounds. He had used his poison advantage and still failed. Everyone could see it. I withdraw my challenge, Rax said, his voice bitter. You have won, Kayla Bloodmoon. He turned and limped out of the arena. His clan followed, their heads down in shame. The crowd erupted in cheers. Kayla had won. The territory was safe. But Jake barely heard it. His legs were shaking so badly he thought he might fall down. He had just broken sacred laws, faced almost certain death, and somehow survived. Kayla grabbed his arm to steady him. You are brave, Jake Morrison. Foolish but brave. I couldn't watch you die, Jake said, his voice shaky. Not because of poison. Not like that. You broke ancient laws for me. Risked execution. Why? Jake looked up at her. At the warrior woman who had been teaching him to be strong. Who protected him. Who was starting to feel like more than just the assignment from the coalition. Because you matter to me, he said. I don't know when it happened. But somewhere between the training and the teaching and the late-night talks, you became important. Not just my assigned partner, but someone I care about. Kayla stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something that shocked everyone watching. She threw back her head and laughed. Not a mocking laugh, but one full of genuine joy. You are the strangest creature I have ever met, she said. She placed her hand over his heart. A gesture Jake had learned meant respect and affection among Vorthans. But you are mine now, my mate. Not because the coalition assigned you, but because you chose to stand with me when death was certain. She turned to address the crowd, her hand still on Jake's chest. Let it be known. Jake Morrison, human of Earth, is mate to Kayla Bloodmoon. He is under my protection, and any who challenge him challenge me. The crowd roared their approval. Jake stood there, covered in dust and fear and adrenaline, next to a 7-foot-tall alien warrior woman who had just declared him her mate in front of her entire clan. His friends back on the colony ship had gotten diplomats and scientists. 3 months after the Blood Moon Challenge, a message arrived at the compound. The Galactic Coalition wanted Jake and Kayla to attend a summit on the neutral world of Velos Prime. They would be showcased as a successful pairing, an example of how different species could work together. Jake wasn't sure how he felt about being put on display like a zoo animal. But Kayla seemed excited in her own way. I have never been to Velos Prime, she said, checking her armor in preparation for the journey. They say it is beautiful, soft, no predators, no harsh weather. Everything is controlled and safe. That sounds nice, Jake said. After months on Kreshatar, the idea of a world without things trying to kill him was appealing. Kayla made a face. It sounds boring, but I am curious to see this place where warriors are not needed. The journey to Velos Prime took 5 days on a coalition transport ship. Jake spent the time helping Kayla practice what the diplomats called appropriate social behavior. This mostly meant teaching her not to challenge people to fights when she disagreed with them, and explaining that showing your fangs was considered threatening, not friendly. But how will people know I am strong if I do not show my fangs? Kayla asked, frustrated. On most worlds, people don't need to know you're strong all the time. They just assume everyone is peaceful until proven otherwise. That seems dangerous. How do you know who to respect? You respect everyone equally, and they respect you back. Kayla thought about this for a long time. Your coalition has strange ideas, but I will try. When they arrived at Velos Prime, Jake understood why Kayla called it soft. The entire planet looked like someone's idea of paradise. Blue skies without a single cloud, green grass that was perfectly trimmed, buildings made of white stone and glass that gleamed in the gentle sunlight. Even the air smelled pleasant, like flowers and rain. The summit was being held in a massive building at the planet's capital. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds were gathering to discuss peace, trade, and cooperation. Jake felt very small walking into the main hall. Jake, over here. He turned and saw Lisa Green waving at him from across the hall. She looked different from the last time he'd seen her. More confident, more relaxed. Kevin Hayes was with her, along with his crystalline partner who made happy musical sounds when they approached. Look at you, Lisa said, giving Jake a hug. Then she stepped back, her eyes wide. You're different, more muscular. And is that a scar on your face? Jake touched the small scar on his cheek, a souvenir from a training accident. Life on Kreshatar is rough, I'll say. You look like you could break me in half. Lisa glanced at Kayla, who stood behind Jake like a crimson shadow. And this must be Kayla. It's nice to meet you. Kayla nodded stiffly. You are Jake's friend from before. He has spoken of you. All good things, I hope. Lisa smiled, but Jake could see she was nervous around Kayla. Most people were. Kevin stepped forward, braver. We've been worried about you, man. The report said you were paired with a Vorathan, and everyone knows they're... He trailed off, realizing Kayla could hear every word. Warriors, Kayla finished for him. Yes, we are warriors. It is not an insult. Right, no offense meant. Kevin changed the subject quickly. So how has it been? Honestly, Jake thought about the training, the hunts, the constant danger, and the slow building of trust and respect between him and Kayla. Hard. Really hard. But good. I've learned more in 3 months than I did in years at the academy. They talked for a while, sharing stories of their experiences. Lisa's partner, Ambassador Torin, had taught her about Centauri poetry and philosophy. Kevin had learned to understand music in ways he never thought possible. Everyone seemed happy with their matches, but Jake noticed something. His friends looked at him differently now, like he had changed into something they didn't quite recognize. He had left as a nervous scientist and come back as someone who could kill a Kresh beast. The formal summit began that evening. Jake and Kayla sat in the section reserved for paired partners. On the stage, important coalition members gave speeches about unity and understanding. Then Ambassador Collins walked up to the podium. He was a human diplomat, tall and well-dressed, with perfect white teeth and hair that looked expensive. Jake had seen his picture in coalition materials. Collins was one of the humans who had pushed hardest for the pairing program. Today we celebrate a great achievement, Collins began. His voice was smooth and practiced. Humans and aliens working together, learning from each other, building bridges between worlds. He smiled at the crowd. Of course, some pairings have worked better than others. We must remember that not all species are equally civilized. Some are more primitive in their ways. Jake felt Kayla stiffen beside him. Her hand moved to her weapon belt, then stopped. She was trying to control herself like they had practiced. Collins continued. The Vorathans, for example, are a warrior culture. Fierce, yes. Strong, certainly. But they could benefit greatly from learning more civilized standards. Perhaps spending time around more advanced species will help them evolve beyond their violent tendencies. Several beings in the audience nodded in agreement. Jake saw Kayla's jaw clench, her fangs showing slightly. He insults my people, she whispered. Calls us primitive, uncivilized. He's an idiot, Jake whispered back. Don't listen to him. But Collins wasn't done. In time, we hope that all species will adopt the peaceful, diplomatic approaches that more advanced cultures have perfected. Violence should have no place in a civilized galaxy. That was too much. Jake stood up, his voice carrying across the hall. Ambassador Collins, I have a question. Collins looked surprised but maintained his smile. Yes, Mr. Morrison? You say the Vorathans are primitive and need to become more civilized. But can you explain how exactly they're primitive? They have honor codes that they follow strictly. They take care of their families and protect their clans. They've survived on one of the harshest worlds in the galaxy for thousands of years. That takes intelligence, adaptation, and strength. The hall went quiet. Everyone was watching now. Collins's smile became strained. I'm not saying they don't have their own culture. I'm simply pointing out that some cultures are more advanced than others. Advanced how? Jake pressed. Because they don't fight? Earth has had hundreds of wars. We've built weapons that could destroy entire continents. Is that civilized? The Vorathans fight with honor, face to face, and they only kill what threatens them or what they need to survive. That seems more civilized to me than dropping bombs from the sky. Kayla grabbed his hand, squeezing it. Jake could feel her looking at him with something like pride. Collins frowned. You've clearly gone native, Mr. Morrison. Perhaps the pairing program needs better psychological screening. Before Jake could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the building. Red lights flashed. A voice came over the speakers. Security breach. All attendees moved to emergency shelters immediately. This is not a drill, chaos erupted. Beings ran in every direction, some screaming, some trying to help others. Jake saw smoke coming from one of the hallways. Then he heard it, an explosion somewhere in the building, loud enough to shake the floor. Kayla moved instantly. She pushed Jake behind her and drew her weapons. Stay close to me. They moved with the crowd toward the emergency exits, but more explosions rocked the building. Part of the ceiling collapsed, blocking the main exit. People were trapped, panicking. This way, Kayla shouted. She used her strength to push aside fallen debris, creating a path. Jake helped, guiding the frightened beings through to safety. In the corridor, they ran into a group of attackers. They wore masks and carried weapons. One of them threw a small device into the crowd. Jake recognized it from his scientific training. A biological weapon designed to release toxins into the air. "Everyone get back," he shouted. But it was too late. The device activated, spraying a mist into the corridor. Beings started coughing, collapsing. The toxin was working fast. Kayla grabbed one of the attackers and slammed him against the wall. "What is this poison?" The attacker laughed behind his mask. "It only kills non-humans. Your coalition friends will all die, and then the galaxy will see that humans should remain pure. We are the Purity Front, and we will save humanity from alien corruption." Jake's mind raced. A toxin designed to kill non-humans but leave humans unharmed. That meant it targeted specific biological markers that were different in aliens. But if he could find the common element, maybe he could create a neutralizer. "Kayla, I need your blood," Jake said urgently. She didn't question him. She cut her palm with her claw and let blood drip into a container Jake pulled from his emergency kit. He always carried basic science equipment, a habit from his old life that had just become incredibly important. Working fast, Jake analyzed the blood. Vorathans had unique properties in their blood, things that helped them survive in harsh environments. If the toxin targeted non-human biology, maybe Vorathan blood could neutralize it. "Kevin," Jake shouted. His friend was nearby, protecting his crystalline partner who was coughing and flickering weakly. "I need your partner's crystalline dust, just a small sample." Kevin scraped a tiny bit of dust from his partner's surface and brought it to Jake. Jake mixed it with Kayla's blood and some chemicals from his kit. The combination created a compound that should theoretically bind to the toxin and neutralize. The ship ride to Kreshtar took 3 days. Jake spent most of that time in his small cabin, trying not to think about what waited for him. Kayla didn't talk much during the journey. She spent her time sharpening her blades, doing exercises that looked painful, and eating raw meat that she tore apart with her bare hands and teeth. On the second day, Jake made the mistake of offering her some of his dried fruit. "What is this?" Kayla asked, poking at the small orange piece in her palm. "It's a peach. From Earth, they're sweet." She sniffed it, made a disgusted face, and tossed it back to him. "I eat meat, blood, bone marrow, not plant candy." But later, when she thought he wasn't looking, Jake saw her try a tiny piece. She chewed it slowly, her face confused, like she didn't know whether she liked it or not. When they finally landed on Kreshtar, Jake understood why Kayla called it perfect for making warriors. The ship's door opened and a wave of heat hit him like a physical blow. The air was so hot it hurt to breathe. The sky above was orange and filled with dark clouds. In the distance, mountains rose up like jagged teeth, black and smoking. "Home," Kayla said, breathing in deeply. She looked happy for the first time since Jake had met her. They traveled across rough ground in a vehicle that bounced and jerked over rocks. Jake saw strange creatures running in the distance. Some had 6 legs, others had armor plating like tanks, and one had a neck so long it could look over the hills. All of them looked dangerous. The compound where Kayla's clan lived was built into the side of a mountain. Tall stone walls surrounded it, with guards standing on top holding weapons that looked both primitive and deadly. As their vehicle approached, the gates opened with a grinding sound. Inside, Vorathans stopped what they were doing to stare at Jake. There were males and females, all tall and muscular, all scarred, all with those glowing eyes. Children played in the dirt, wrestling and fighting with practice weapons. Even the youngest ones looked tougher than Jake felt. "That is the human?" A male Vorathan walked up to them. He was younger than Kayla, but just as tall with fewer scars. "He looks like he would break in a strong wind." "This is my brother Drex," Kayla said to Jake. Then to Drex. "He is under my protection. Anyone who harms him answers to me," Drex laughed. "Protection? Sister, you have gone soft. What use is such a weak creature?" "That is what we will discover," Kayla said. Her voice had an edge to it that made Drex step back. "Where I am assigned to go, he goes. Where I sleep, he sleeps. This is the agreement with the coalition." She led Jake through the compound. The buildings were simple, made of stone and metal. Everything looked built for function, not comfort. Vorathans nodded to Kayla as they passed, showing respect. But they looked at Jake with confusion or amusement. Kayla's living space was one large room carved into the rock. There was a sleeping platform covered in furs, a table, some storage chests, and weapons hanging on the walls. Lots of weapons. Swords, spears, axes, and things Jake didn't have names for. You sleep there. Kayla pointed to a corner with some spare furs piled up. We eat at sunset and sunrise. Training begins at first light. Questions. Jake had about 1,000,000 questions, but he picked the most important one. Training? You cannot survive here if you are weak. I will train you. Make you stronger, faster, able to defend yourself. She looked him over with those burning eyes. It will be painful. You will want to quit. But if you do, you will die. Something will eat you, or the heat will kill you, or you will fall and break yourself on the rocks. Kreshtar does not forgive weakness. That night, Jake learned what Vorathon food was like. The clan gathered in a large hall carved from the mountain. Fire pits burned in the center, cooking huge chunks of meat on spits. The smell was overwhelming, both good and bad at the same time. Kayla filled a plate for both of them. Jake looked at his portion and felt his stomach turn. The meat was barely cooked, still red in the middle, and there was some kind of vegetable that glowed faintly purple. Eat, Kayla commanded. You need strength, Jake tried. The meat was tough and had a wild taste, like nothing from Earth. The vegetable burned his mouth with spices that made his eyes water. Around him, Vorathons were eating with their hands, tearing into their food, talking loudly, and occasionally starting fights that seemed more like play than real combat. Why did you request a human partner? Jake asked between small bites. Kayla was quiet for a moment, chewing thoughtfully. I wanted to see if the stories were true. What stories? That humans are weak but clever. That they survive not through strength but through thinking. That they can adapt to anything. She looked at him. I have fought many battles, Jake Morrison. I know strength. But I want to understand this other kind of surviving. The kind that does not need claws or fangs. It was the most she had said to him since they met. Jake found himself looking at her differently. Maybe she wasn't just a warrior. Maybe she was curious too. The next morning, Jake learned what Kayla meant by training. She woke him before the sun rose when the air was still cold enough to see his breath. Run, she said. Run where? Around the compound. Until I say stop, Jake ran. He made it halfway around before his lungs were burning and his legs felt like jelly. Kayla ran beside him, not even breathing hard. When he stopped, bent over and gasping, she didn't yell. She just waited. Again, she said when he could stand. They did this every morning, running, then climbing, then lifting heavy stones, then combat training with wooden weapons. Jake was terrible at all of it. He couldn't keep up with the Vorathon children, let alone the adults. His hands blistered. His muscles screamed. He fell asleep each night so tired he couldn't even worry about dying. But something strange started to happen. After a week, he could run a little farther. After 2 weeks, he could lift heavier stones. The other Vorathons still looked at him like he was pathetic, but they stopped laughing quite as much. Drex, however, never stopped mocking him. Look at the little human, struggling with a child's weight, he would say during training. My daughter lifts more than that and she has only 6 summers. Jake tried to ignore him, but it was hard. Everything on Kreshtar was hard. The real test came 2 weeks after Jake arrived. Kayla woke him in the middle of the night. Get up, quietly, bring your bag with the medical supplies. What's wrong? We hunt. There is a Kresh beast near the compound. If we do not kill it, it will attack when the children play outside. Jake's blood went cold. He had seen pictures of Kresh beasts in the ship's database. 6-legged predators the size of a truck with armor plates covering their bodies and jaws that could bite through metal. I can't fight one of those, Jake said. I know, but you will come with me anyway. You need to see what real danger looks like, and I may need those medical supplies before the night ends. They left through a small gate in the wall. The moons of Kreshtar gave enough light to see by, turning everything silver and strange. Kayla moved silently across the rocks, her weapons ready. Jake followed as quietly as he could, his heart pounding so hard he thought the beast would hear it. They found it near a dried stream bed, a huge, dark shape moving between the rocks. Even in the moonlight, Jake could see its massive body, its thick armor plating, and its eyes reflecting the light like mirrors. Kayla didn't hesitate. She charged forward with a war cry that echoed off the mountains. The Kresh beast turned and roared back, a sound so deep Jake felt it in his chest. They collided in a blur of claws and blades. Jake stood frozen, watching the battle. Kayla was fast and strong, but the beast was huge. It swung one of its armored legs and caught her in the side, sending her flying into the rocks. She got up, blood running down her arm, and attacked again. The fight seemed to last forever. Kayla was getting slower. The beast had wounded her in several places. Jake watched in horror as she stumbled, and the beast's jaws opened wide, ready to bite down on her. Something in Jake's mind clicked. He remembered his xenobiology training, the database entry about creche beasts. They hunted by smell and sound, but their eyes were weak. The armor plates protected them except for the joints. Without thinking, Jake ran forward. He grabbed a rock and threw it at the beast's face. It missed, but the beast turned toward him, confused by the new threat. Jake ran to the side, yelling and waving his arms. The beast followed him with its head, trying to figure out where he was. That moment of distraction was all Kayla needed. She drove her blade into the joint where the beast's front leg met its body. The creature screamed and turned back to her, but now it was off balance. Kayla jumped onto its back and drove another blade deep into the gap between its armor plates at the neck. The creche beast collapsed, its legs giving out. Kayla rode it down, holding onto her weapons until it stopped moving. Then she sat down heavily in the dirt, breathing hard. Blood covered her armor. Jake ran to her with his medical bag. His hands were shaking, but he forced them to be steady as he cleaned her wounds and used the healing spray from Earth. Kayla watched him work, saying nothing. When he was done, she stood up slowly. They looked at each other in the moonlight, both covered in dirt and blood. "You distracted it," Kayla said. "Used your knowledge of how it senses prey. That was smart thinking. I couldn't just watch you die." "Why not? I am the warrior. You are the plant tender. You could have run back to the compound." Jake surprised himself with his answer. The summit ended 2 days after the attack. The coalition praised Jake and Kayla as heroes, gave them medals, and made speeches about unity and cooperation. Jake smiled through it all, but inside he felt tired. He wanted to go somewhere quiet, somewhere that felt real. The problem was figuring out where that place was. "The diplomatic exchange program is ending," Lisa told him as they packed their belongings. "We can all go home to Earth now. Back to normal life." She smiled, but it looked sad. "I'll miss Ambassador Torin. We became real friends, but I'm ready to sleep in my own bed again." Jake helped her carry a box to the transport station. "What will you do on Earth?" "Go back to my old job, probably. Maybe write a book about my experiences. Date someone normal for once," she laughed. "No offense to Torin, but it'll be nice to be around people who don't need a translation device." "Yeah," Jake said, but the word felt hollow in his mouth. That night, he couldn't sleep. He stood in his temporary quarters on Velos Prime, looking out at the perfectly peaceful city below. In a few days, he could be back on Earth, back to his old apartment, his old laboratory, his old life where the most dangerous thing he faced was a paper deadline. The door opened quietly. Kayla entered, moving silently despite her size. She had learned not to knock, just like Jake had learned not to jump every time she appeared. "You are thinking loud," she said. "I can hear it from my room. I didn't think you could hear thoughts. I cannot. But I know your face now. That is your worried, thinking face." She sat down on the floor next to him, which put her head about level with his since he was sitting on the bed. "What troubles you?" "The exchange is over. Everyone is going home. Lisa is excited to return to Earth. Kevin can't wait to see his family." Jake picked at a thread on his blanket. "But when I think about going back, I just feel empty. Like I'd be leaving something important behind." "You would be leaving me behind," Kayla said. There was no emotion in her voice, but Jake had learned that this was how she sounded when she was hurt. "I know, but you can't come to Earth. Your clan needs you on Crescitar. You're their hunt leader, and Earth would be torture for you. Everything is soft and safe and boring. This is true." Kayla was quiet for a moment. "But I would suffer Earth's softness if it meant staying with you." Jake looked at her, surprised. Kayla never said things like this. She showed her feelings through actions, not words. "When we first met," Kayla continued, "I thought you were weak, useless. I could not understand why the coalition matched us. But you taught me something important. Strength is not only in muscles and fangs. Strength is also in here." She touched her chest. "In choosing to stand when falling would be easier. In helping others when leaving would be safer." "You are strong, Jake Morrison." "In ways I never knew strength could exist." "You taught me strength too," Jake said. "The physical kind, yes, but also the strength to face my fears instead of running from them, to push past my limits, to fight for what matters, and then we taught each other. We made each other better." Kayla took his hand in her much larger one. So what do we do now? You return to Earth and I return to Kreshtar. We pretend these months meant nothing. They meant everything. Jake said it without hesitation, without doubt. I don't want to go back to my old life. I don't want to pretend this never happened. What do you want? It was the most important question anyone had ever asked him. Jake thought about his life before Kreshtar. Safe, comfortable, predictable. He thought about his life on Kreshtar. Dangerous, difficult, but real. He thought about Kayla, who had become more than a partner or a friend. She had become home. I want to stay with you, Jake said. I want to build something new, not just human, not just Vorathan, but something that combines the best of both. Kayla's eyes glowed brighter, the way they did when she was happy. You would give up Earth? The soft life? The safety? I'm not giving it up. I'm choosing something better. I'm choosing us. The next morning, Jake sent a message to the Coalition. He wasn't returning to Earth. Instead, he was proposing something new. A joint settlement on Kreshtar where humans and Vorathans could live together, learn from each other, and build a community that valued both strength and knowledge. The Coalition was hesitant at first. Kreshtar was dangerous. Most humans couldn't survive there. But Jake argued that humanity had to take risks to grow. He proposed careful selection of colonists, proper training, and gradual adaptation. He would lead the scientific efforts while Kayla would lead security and cultural integration. After weeks of discussions and planning, the Coalition agreed to a trial program. 20 humans volunteered for the first wave, including Kevin Hayes, who wanted to continue working with different species. And surprisingly, Lisa Green. Are you crazy? Jake asked her when she told him. You said you wanted to go home and date normal people. Lisa smiled. I did go home. For 2 weeks. And I was bored out of my mind. Jake, we spent months experiencing something amazing. How can I just go back to filing reports and going to dinner parties? Besides, you'll need someone to document this whole thing. Someone has to write the history of the first real human Vorathan colony. The transport arrived at Kreshtar 6 weeks later. Jake stood at the compound gates with Kayla, watching as the humans stepped off the ship. Some looked terrified when they felt the heat and saw the harsh landscape. Others looked excited. All of them looked determined. Drex walked up to stand beside his sister. More humans? Are we running a nursery now? These humans volunteered to come here, Kayla said. They want to learn our ways, and we will learn theirs. It is not weakness to adapt, brother. It is strength. Drex grunted but didn't argue. He had seen what Jake could do, had witnessed the summit attack and how human knowledge had saved lives. He was starting to understand. The first months were hard. 2 of the humans couldn't handle the environment and returned to Earth. 3 more got seriously injured during training and had to spend weeks recovering. But slowly, the settlement began to work. Jake taught the Vorathans about agriculture, and soon there were gardens growing inside the compound using hydroponic systems that could survive the harsh climate. The Vorathans taught the humans about hunting and tracking, about reading the weather patterns of Kreshtar, about fighting together as a clan. Kevin set up a communication hub that allowed humans and Vorathans to share information with other worlds. Lisa started a school where young Vorathans and human children could learn together. It was chaotic and sometimes violent, since Vorathan children played much rougher. But they were learning. 1 year after the settlement began, Jake stood on the same cliff where Kayla had taken him during his first week on Kreshtar. Back then he had looked at the harsh landscape and felt only fear. Now he looked at it and saw potential, saw home. Kayla joined him, moving silently as always. She had changed too. She was still a warrior, still fierce and strong, but she smiled more now. She asked questions instead of just giving orders. She had learned that leading wasn't just about strength, but also about understanding. The Coalition wants to send more humans, she said. 50 in the next wave. They say our settlement is a success. Are we ready for 50 more? We survived you, Kayla said with a grin. We can survive anything. Below them, they could see the expanded compound. Human-designed buildings next to traditional Vorathan structures. Gardens growing beside training grounds. Children of 2 species playing together. Teaching each other their languages through games and fights and friendship. Do you regret it? Kayla asked. When you were assigned to me, you looked terrified. Now you are here by choice. But do you ever miss the soft life? Jake thought about it honestly. Sometimes I miss hot showers that last longer than 2 minutes. And food that doesn't try to fight back. But no, I don't regret this. Not for a second. Why? Because I found something on Kreshitar that I never had on Earth. Purpose, challenge, a real partnership with someone who pushes me to be better every single day. He looked at her. I found you. Kayla pulled him close and Jake leaned into her warmth. She smelled like leather and smoke and the strange spices of Kreshitar. It was a smell that used to seem alien and frightening. Now it smelled like home. Everyone on the colony ship got normal assignments, Kayla said. Peaceful aliens, easy jobs, safe places. And I got you, Jake finished. The savage alien vampire woman. Kyla laughed, that real laugh that he had worked so hard to earn. I am not savage. I am traditional, very traditional, especially when you eat your meat raw. You eat your vegetables raw. How is that different? They argued playfully the way they did every day, comfortable in a way that came from truly knowing each other. From seeing each other at their worst and their best and choosing to stay anyway. Lisa climbed up the cliff to join them, breathing hard. Even after a year, the climb was difficult. The new volunteers are arriving tomorrow. I thought you should know. Are you ready for 50 more students? Jake asked. Not even a little bit, but we'll figure it out. We always do. She sat down on a rock, looking out at the settlement. You know, when I first saw you paired with Kayla, I thought it was a disaster. I thought you'd be home in a week. So did I, Jake admitted. But you weren't. You stayed. You fought. You adapted. You proved that humans can thrive anywhere, even on a world that wants to kill them. Lisa smiled. You're